Chapter 24 of the Ladies' Book of Etiquette and Manual of Politeness. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Ladies' Book of Etiquette and Manual of Politeness by Florence Hartley. Chapter 24, Bridal Etiquette. In preparing a bridal outfit, it is best to furnish the wardrobe for at least 2 years in underclothes and 1 year in dresses, though the bonnet and cloak suitable for the coming season are all that are necessary, as the fashions in these articles change so rapidly. If you are going to travel, have a neat dress and cloak of some plain color, and a close bonnet and veil. Avoid as intensely vulgar any display of your position as a bride whilst traveling. Take first the weddings at church. In this case, none are invited to the ceremony excepting the family, and the reception is at the house of the bride's mother or nearest relative, either on the wedding day or upon her return from the bridal tour. In sending out the invitations, let the card of the bridegroom and that of the bride be tied together with a white ribbon and folded in the note paper upon which is printed the name of the bride's mother, with the date of the reception day thus: Mrs. John Saunders, at home, Thursday, October 16th, from 11 till 2, No. 218 Street. Of course, the hours and dates vary, but the form is the same. If there is no bridal reception upon the wedding day, the cards are worded, Mr. and Mrs. James Smith, at home Wednesdays, on or after June 6th, No. 17 Street. Tie the card with the bride's maiden name upon it to this one. Enclose the invitation in a white envelope and tie it with white satin ribbon. If you send cake, have it put in a white box and place the note outside the cover, tying it fast with white satin ribbon. The bride's dress must be of white entirely. If she is married in the morning, a plain white silk, white mantle, and white bonnet, full trimmed with orange flowers, with a plain veil is the most suitable dress. And she may wear a richer one at her reception, when she returns from her bridal tour. As soon as the carriages come, let the bridesmaids and relatives set off first. Last, the bride with her parents. The bride, her parents, and the bridesmaids go immediately to the vestry, where they meet the bridegroom and the groomsmen. The father of the bride gives her his arm and escorts her to the altar, the bridegroom walking on the other side. Then follow the bridesmaids and groomsmen in couples. When they reach the altar, the bridegroom removes his right-hand glove, but the bride keeps hers on until the clergyman takes the ring. The first bridesmaid then removes the left-hand glove, and it is not resumed. The bridesmaids should wear white dresses, white mantles and bonnets, but not veils or orange flowers. The bride and groom leave the church first after the ceremony is over, and take the carriage with the parents of the bride, and the others follow in the order in which they came. If there is a breakfast or morning reception, the bride will not change her dress until she retires to put on her traveling attire. If the wedding takes place in the evening at church, to be followed by a full dress reception at home, the bride should wear a white lace dress over satin, or any other material to suit her own taste, a veil falling from her head to her feet, fastened to the hair by a coiffure of orange flowers, white kid gloves, and white satin slippers. A bouquet, if carried, should contain only white flowers. The bridesmaids may wear white or some thin, light-colored material over white, a headdress of flowers, and carry bouquets of mixed flowers. When the wedding takes place at home, let the company assemble in the front drawing-room, and close the doors between that and the back room. In the back room let the bride, bridegroom, bridesmaids, and groomsmen, the parents of the bride, and the clergyman assemble. The clergyman should stand in the center of the room, the bride and groom before him, the bridesmaids arranged beside the bride, the groomsmen beside the bridegroom. Then open the doors and let the ceremony begin. This arrangement saves that awkwardness attendant upon entering the room and taking the position before a large company. After the ceremony is over, the parents of the bride speak to her first, then her near relatives, and not until then the other members of the company. It is not usual now to have dancing or even music at a wedding, and the hour is named upon the cards at which the guests are expected to retire. A very pretty effect is produced in the wedding group if the bride wears pure white and the bridesmaids white with flowers and trimmings of a different color. Thus one in white with a headdress and trimming of green leaves, another white with blue ribbons and forget-me-nots, another white with pink roses and ribbons. If the wedding is in the morning, the bride and family may wear full dress. In that case, the shutters should be closed and the rooms lighted as in the evenings. Let the supper be laid early and ready when the ceremony is over, that the guests may pass into the dining room if they wish, as soon as they have spoken to the bride. If a morning wedding, let the table be set as for an evening wedding. If the bride gives a reception at her own house after her return from her bridal tour, she should not wear her wedding dress. If in the evening, a supper should be set. If a morning reception, let her wear handsome light silk, collar and sleeves of lace. Wine and cake are sufficient to hand to each guest at a morning reception. At an evening reception, let the bride wear full dress, but not her wedding dress. At parties given to a newly married couple, the bridesmaids and groomsmen are always invited, and the whole party are expected to wear the same dresses as at the wedding. End of chapter 24, read by Jennifer Wilson.
Chapter 25 of the Ladies' Book of Etiquette and Manual of Politeness. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by LesWilLang. The Ladies' Book of Etiquette and Manual of Politeness by Florence Hartley. Chapter 25. Hints on Health. The universal remark of travelers visiting America, as well as the universal complaint of Americans themselves, relates to the ill health of the fairer portion of the community. Look where you will, go to any city in the vast Union, the remark and complaint will be made everywhere. With every natural advantage of climate, yet from north to south, east to west, the cry resounds. Foreigners admiring the dark-eyed girls of the southern states or the blondes of the northern ones will remark with comments upon beauty, "But she looks delicate, poor thing. Not strong? Ah, I thought not. None of the American women are, and how soon these young beauties fade." It seems to me, amongst the subjects treated of in my present work, that a few words on health will not come amiss. Light and sunshine are needful for your health. Get all you can. Keep your windows clean. Do not block them up with curtains, plants, or bunches of flowers. These last poison the air in small rooms. Fresh air is needful for your health. As often as you can, open all your windows, if only for a short time in bad weather. In fine weather, keep them open, but never sit in drafts. When you get up, open the windows wide and throw down the bedclothes that they may be exposed to fresh air some hours daily before they are made up. Keep your bedclothes clean. Hang them to the fire when you can. Avoid wearing at night what you wear in the day. Hang up your day clothes at night, except in the severest weather in small, crowded sleeping rooms. A little opening at the top of the window sash is very important, or you will find one window pane of perforated zinc very useful. You will not catch cold half so easily by breathing pure air at night. Let not the beds be directly under the windows. Sleeping in exhausted air creates a desire for stimulants. Pure water is needful for your health. Wash your bodies as well as your faces, rubbing them all over with a coarse cloth. If you cannot wash thus every morning, pray do so once a week. Crying and cross children are often pacified by a gentle washing of their little hands and faces. It soothes them. Babies' heads should be washed carefully every morning with soap. No scurf should be suffered to remain upon them. Get rid of all slops and dirty water at once. Disease and even death is often the consequence of our own negligence. Wash your rooms and passages at least once a week. Use plenty of clean water. but do not let your children stay in them while they are wet. It may bring on croup or inflammation of the chest. If you read your Bibles, which it is earnestly hoped you do, you will find how cleanliness, both as to the person and habitation, was taught to the Jews by God Himself. And we read in the 4th chapter of Nehemiah that when they were building their second temple and defending their lives against their foes, having no time for rest, they contrived to put off their clothes for washing. It is a good old saying that cleanliness is next to godliness. See Hebrew, X 2:2. Wholesome food is needful for your health. Buy the most strengthening. Pieces of fresh beef and mutton go the farthest. Eat plenty of fresh salt with food. It prevents disease. Pray do not let your children waste their pennies in tarts, cakes, bullseyes, hard bake, sour fruit, etc. They are very unwholesome and hurt the digestion. People would often, at 20 years of age, have a nice little sum of money to help them on in the world, if they had put in the savings bank the money so wasted. Cocoa is cheaper and much more nourishing than tea. None of these liquids should be taken hot, but lukewarm. When hot, they inflame the stomach and produce indigestion. We are all made to breathe the pure air of heaven, and therefore much illness is caused by being constantly indoors. Let all persons make a point, whenever it is possible, of taking exercise in the open air for at least an hour and a half daily. Time would be saved in the long run by the increased energy and strength gained, and by the warding off of disease. Let it not be supposed that it is not the duty of every young lady to take due care of her health, and to preserve in all its power of utility and every portion of vigor which has been bestowed on her. With many young ladies, it appears to be a maxim to do everything in their power to destroy the health which is so much wanted in the real business of life, and which forms so important a requisite to happiness. In the first place, as to hours, they never leave the ballroom until utterly exhausted and scarcely fit to crawl to bed. The noonday sleep, the scarcely touched breakfast, that most important meal, are followed by preparations for the succeeding night's pleasures, or in head-aching morning calls, driving about in a close carriage, or lounging on a sofa in an overheated room reading novels. Dressing follows. The warm wrapper or dress is thrown aside. Over the tightly drawn corsets is fastened a flimsy dress with an inch of oversleeve, the neck laid bare, thin stockings drawn on in place of thick ones, and the consumption seeker goes forth to the ballroom again. At times you miss from the gay assemblage some former ornament. You inquire about her. She has taken cold. Inflammation of the lungs caught it in an accidental draught of air by one of these fair half-dressed beings, carried off not long since, one of the gayest and fairest of the belles of the season, after an illness of 3 days. Preservation of the health ought, from an early stage of existence, to be enforced as a duty upon the young. To walk daily, to have daily recourse in summer, even twice a day, to the sponging with cold water or the shower bath, to eat sufficiently of plain, nutritious food, to keep the mind calm. These are duties. They should be habitually exercised. Care should be taken not to come out heated, with a shawl just pinned across the shoulders, from a heated room. Where there is delicacy of the lungs or windpipe, yet not sufficient to render a withdrawal from evening parties necessary, the use of a respirator at night is desirable. It is usual to have recourse to this valuable invention only when disease is actually existing. As a preventative, it is neglected. Yet preserving the temperature of a warm room, it is an excellent precaution, and can be easily assumed when the shawl or cloak is put on. The atmosphere of a city is destructive where there is any pulmonary delicacy, and who shall say where there is not pulmonary delicacy? In this climate, there is a tendency to it, more or less, in almost every family. At all events, it is too easily induced in our predisposed constitutions by cold, aided by the debilitating effect of heated rooms and an artificial mode of existence, and accelerated also most decidedly by bared shoulders. For in this climate it is scarcely ever safe to lay bare that portion of the frame, the back and chest, in which the lungs are seated, and although custom may greatly lead to diminish the injurious effects, the sudden chill may strike and may never be recovered. During every season, certain people have head colds, coughs, and feverish colds. These are produced by certain states of climate acting on certain states of constitution. At particular seasons, such complaints abound. At others, they abound still more, and again, from some singularity, they prevail so much that people say there is an influenza. Influenza has been long known in the world. It has often visited Europe, and has made its appearance on our shores with greater severity than at present. It has sometimes been very severe, and left many persons ill for a year or two. The symptoms of influenza need not be dwelt on, as they have been so generally felt by our readers or their friends. It varies in different people, to be sure, both in kind and in degree. Considering the number of people it attacks, it may be looked on as an innocent disease, but on the other hand, looking at the increase it has made in the number of deaths, it is an exceedingly serious one after all. In simple cases, confinement to a pure and temperate air, warm drinks and a warm bath, or at least a warm foot bath with an extra blanket, and a little more rest than usual, keeping to mild food and toast and water, and taking, if necessary, a dose of aperient medicine, is all that is required. In serious cases, the domestic treatment must become professional. Mustard plasters to the back relieve the headache. Squills find other medicines loosen the outstanding cough. Bark and wine and even cold baths are sometimes requisite for the weakness left behind. But these things can only be used with discrimination by a regular professional man. Supposing that the seeds of disease have not been laid in childhood, and that there is no particular predisposition to any malady in the constitution, a young woman enters life with every fair prospect of enjoying tolerable health. Yet how variable and delicate and complaining do the majority of women become! What a vast expense is incurred during the course of their lives in physicians, medicine, change of air, baths abroad and at home, and journeys! How few women can walk or can suppress nervous feelings or can eat like reasonable beings! How many suffer or say they suffer from debility, headaches, dyspepsia, a tendency to colds, eternal sore throats, rheumatic attacks, and the whole list of polite complaints. With all our modern wisdom, with all our books on health, our smatterings of physiological science, our open carriages, sponging baths, and attention to diet, women now are a far more feeble race than our grandmothers, or even our mothers, were. What daughter can walk half as far as her mother can? What young woman can take the active part that her mother did? In most families, the order of things is reversed. It is not a child trembling for her mother's health and fearing lest her parent, no longer young, should be fatigued, but it is the mother who is always striving to spare her child's exertions which she can herself perfectly well undergo, but which the enfeebled child of modern self-indulgence dare not encounter. Yes, we are a self-indulgent race, this present generation. Witness our easily excited feelings. Witness our late hours of rising, our sofas and easy chairs, our useless days and dissipated nights. Witness our pallid faces, our forms, sometimes attenuated and repulsive while yet in early life, age marching, not creeping on before his time. Or witness our overfed and overexpanded forms, enfeebled by indolence and suffering the worst species of debility, the debility of fat. Witness our doing those things by deputy which our grandmothers did themselves. Witness our host of scents and perfumed waters on our dressing tables, our over-refinement, which amounts to an enervating puerility, and our incapacity of parting with one accustomed indulgence, even at the bidding of the learned and disinterested adviser. In the education of women, writes a modern physician, too little attention is given to subdue the imaginative faculty and to moderate sensibility. On the contrary, they are generally fostered, and instead of a vigorous intellect and healthy condition of mind, we find imagination and sentiment predominant over the reasoning faculties, and laying the foundation of hysterical, hypochondriacal, and even maniacal diseases. It is, in fact, this want of judgment in the management of early life that produces so much misery when women are called upon to perform an important part in society, and when all that exertion can do is required at their hands. The duration of sleep should not, in the adult, exceed 6 or 8 hours. Women injure their health greatly by excess in this respect. On rising, all women should use some mode of cold or tepid bath, and indeed, in this respect, the practice of the present day is admirable. There is every faculty for the bath. To some, the use of the shower bath is deleterious, and to all inconvenient, and not likely to be resorted to except when positively ordered. Dr. Combe recommends for general use the tepid or warm bath as being much more suitable than the cold bath, especially in the winter for those who are not robust and full of animal heat. When the constitution is not sufficiently vigorous to ensure reaction after the cold bath, by producing a warm glow over the surface, its use, observes the same admirable writer, inevitably does harm. But he enforces that in order to promote a due exhalation from the skin, the warm, the tepid, or the shower bath, as a means of preserving health, ought to be in as common use as a change of apparel, for it is equally a measure of necessary cleanliness. He inclines to the use of the tepid bath as likely to be the most generally efficacious. I have known the most beneficial effects from a modification of this advice, namely from using a sponging bath, into which you pour a jug of warm water, and in which you stand, whilst you sponge the body and limbs profusely with cold water. A strong friction should be employed after this process, either with horsehair gloves or with a large coarse towel, and few persons will find the use of the sponging bath disagree with them when thus employed. It is indeed incredible when we consider the importance of the exhalation performed by the skin, to what extent ablution is neglected, not only, as Dr. Combe specifies, in charitable institutions and seminaries for the young, but by ladies in ordinary circumstances, to whom the use of the bath could be productive of no inconvenience. In nervous complaints which are more or less the besetting evil of womankind, the bath in its various forms becomes an invaluable aid. In the formation of those habits which are necessary for the preservation of health, another circumstance which, from its importance to health, cannot be deemed trifling, should be mentioned. It is a general practice that beds should be made as soon as the occupants have left their rooms, and before the air has been freely admitted to play upon the recent depository of the human frame. But this should be avoided. The bed linen and blankets should be taken off, and the windows opened so that for an hour or more a thorough ventilation should be procured. Upon another point, the inconsistency and mental blindness of women are almost inconceivable. The insufficiency of their dress to resist the attacks of our variable climate. How few women clothe themselves like rational beings. Although in latter years they have wisely adopted the use of warm dresses and more especially of the valuable Scottish plaid, yet how commonly they neglect the aid of flannel in preserving them not only from cold, but in securing a necessary circulation of vitality in the skin. The necessary effect of deficient circulation in the skin, remarks Dr. Combe, is to throw a disproportionate mass of blood inwards, and when this condition exists, insufficient clothing perpetuates the evil until internal disease is generated and health is irrecoverably lost. How common is the complaint among young women, especially those of sedentary habits, of chilliness, cold feet, and other symptoms of deficient circulation, and yet how impossible would it often be, for women are usually obstinate on this head, to induce them to exchange the thin silk stocking for a warm merino one, or to substitute a proper walking shoe for the paper-like articles which they designate by that name. Hence arise many diseases which are, by insensible degrees, fostered in the system by the unequal distribution of the blood oppressing the internal organs. The habitual tendency to that chilliness which has been referred to should never be disregarded, laying as it does, says Dr. Combe, the foundation of tubercles in the lungs and other maladies, which show themselves only when arrived at an incurable stage. All those who value health and have common sense will therefore take warning from signs like these, and never rest until equilibrium of action can be restored. Warm clothing, exercise in the open air, sponging with tepid water and vinegar or the warm bath, the use of a flesh brush or hair glove, are adapted to remedy these serious and threatening evils. But whilst inefficiency of clothing is to be deprecated, excessive wrapping up should also be avoided. Great differences exist between the power of generating heat and resisting cold in individuals, and it is therefore impossible to prescribe general rules upon the subject of clothing. The best maxim is not to dress in any invariable way in all cases, but to put on clothing sufficient in the individual case to protect the body effectively against the sensation of cold. The insufficiency of warmth in the clothing of females constitutes only one part of its injurious effects. The tightness of dress obstructs the insensible perspiration hurtfully and produces an irregular circulation. Every part and function of the human frame are linked together so closely that we cannot act wrongly towards one organ without all suffering, or act rightly without all sharing the benefit of our judgment and good sense. The mischief arising from cold or wet feet is admitted by all persons who have given the subject of health even the most casual consideration. In conversing with very aged people, you will generally find a disregard of diet and very different notions and practices upon the subject of exercise and ablution, but they all agree in the necessity of keeping the feet dry. I remember inquiring of a venerable clergyman who, up to the age of 96, had enjoyed a fair proportion of health after a youth of delicacy. I asked him what system he pursued. Now, was his reply, I never took much care what I ate. I have always been temperate. I never minded the weather, but I always took care to keep my feet dry and well shod. Wet and damp are indeed more unwholesome when applied to the feet than when they affect other parts, because they receive a greater supply of blood to carry on a high degree of perspiration, and because their distance from the heart, or center of circulation, diminishes the force with which this is carried on, and thus leaves them more susceptible from external causes. God, in His infinite benevolence, has given to His creatures other means of acquiring a healthy warmth than by clothing. He has endowed us with the power of exercise, that blessing which women of weak judgment and indolent natures are so prone to neglect and disparage. Most ladies appear to think that the privilege of walking is only intended for persons of inferior condition. They busy themselves in their indoor occupations all the morning, taking a hearty luncheon, and drive out in their carriages until dinner time. It is partly owing to such customs as these that a rapid deterioration takes place in the physical state of our sex, in their looks and in their power of utility and enjoyment of happiness. God never intended us to be inactive. The chief purpose of muscles with which we are endowed is to enable us to carry into effect the volitions of the mind, and, whilst fulfilling this grand object, the active exercise of the muscles is conducive to the well-being of many other important functions. The processes of digestion, respiration, secretion, absorption, and nutrition are promoted, and the healthful condition of the whole body influenced. The mind is also depressed or exhilarated by the proper or improper use of muscular exercise, for man is intended for a life of activity, nor can his functions ever go on so properly as when he duly exercises those organs with which nature has endowed him. The evils arising from want of exercise are numerous. The circulation, from the absence of due stimulus, becomes languid. The appetite and digestion are weakened. The respiration is imperfect, and the blood becomes so ill-conditioned that when distributed through the body, it is inadequate to communicate the necessary stimulus to healthy and vigorous action. These points being established, it now becomes a consideration in what mode or at what periods ladies in society can most advantageously avail themselves of that privilege which is granted to so many, denied comparatively to so few. Much is said on the benefits of walking before breakfast, and to a person in full vigor it may, there is no doubt, be highly salutary, whilst, to the delicate, it will prove more hurtful than beneficial, producing a sense of weariness which destroys all the future pleasures of the day. I am disposed to think, however, from observation, that walking before breakfast may be rendered beneficial to almost any one by degrees. Most persons walk too far the first day. They are proud of the effort, become nevertheless exhausted, and dare not repeat it. A first walk before breakfast should not exceed 1/4 of a mile. It should be extended very gradually, and in delicate women with great care, lest over-fatigue should ensue. It is, however, so valuable a habit, such a saving of time, so refreshing, so soothing, that many sacrifices of inclination should be made to procure it. In gay season, the freshness and seclusion of a morning's walk is peculiarly needed, and when it becomes so difficult to take exercise in the subsequent part of the day, the afternoon being too short and the evening too much occupied, and the morning's walk, stolen from the hour given to a species of repose which seldom rests, may be, without the reproach of indolence, followed by the afternoon's siesta, a practice much to be commended and greatly conducive to rest of nerves and invigoration of the frame when used in moderation. Exercise may be taken by the robust at any time, even after eating heartily, but the delicate ought to avoid that risk. They should resort to it only when the frame is vigorous enough to bear it, and this is usually from 1 to 4 or 5 hours after eating. The morning is therefore the best time, but exercise ought not to be delayed until some degree of exhaustion has taken place from want of food, as in that case it dissipates rather than renovates the remaining strength and impairs digestion. Exercise immediately before meals is therefore, unless very gentle, injurious. If it has been violent, before eating, rest should intervene. Appetite, says Dr. Combe, revives after repose. Of all modes of exercise, that which nature has bestowed upon us, walking is decidedly the most salutary, and the prevailing system of substituting horse and carriage exercise almost entirely for it is far from being advantageous to the present generation. Walking, which has for its aim some pleasing pursuit, and therefore animates the mind, is efficacious to the majority. Gardening, which is a modification of walking, offers many advantages both to the delicate and the strong, and it is a species of exercise which we can adjust to our powers. In a continued walk you must go on, you must return. There is no appeal, even if you have gone too far and would willingly give up any further exertion. But while gardening, you are still at home. Your exertions are devoted to objects the most interesting, because progressive. Hope and faith form a part of your stimulus. The happy future, when flowers shall bloom around you, supersedes in your thoughts the vexatious present or the mournful past. About you are the budding treasures of spring, or the gorgeous productions of summer, or the rich hues of those beauties which autumn pours forth most lavishly before it departs, and is succeeded by winter. Above you are the gay warblers, who seem to hail you as you mingle in the sylvan scenes which are not all theirs, but which you share and appropriate. The ruffled temper, the harassed mind, may find solace in the occupation of gardening, which aids the effective exercise and the benign influence of fresh air. Stores of future and never-dying interest are buried in the earth with every seed, only to spring up again redoubled in their value. A lady, as a writer in the Quarterly Review observes, should not only have, but know, her plants. And her enjoyment of those delights is truly enhanced by that personal care, without which few gardens, however superintended by the scientific gardener, can prosper, and which bless as they thrive. Her plants bestow health on the frame, which is bowed down to train them. They give to her the blessing of a calm and rational pleasure. They relieve her from the necessity of excitement. They promote alike in the wealthy and the poor these gentle exertions which are coupled with the most poetical and the sweetest of associations. Exercise on horseback is not equally attainable with the two modes which I have just specified. When it is, the accelerated circulation, the change of scene and of ideas are highly beneficial. Where lungs are weak, it is thought by the learned to possess a great advantage over walking, as it does not hurry the breathing. The gentleness of the exercise enables a delicate person to enjoy the advantage of open air and motion for a much longer period than could be endured in the action of walking. From the tendency of horse exercise to equalize the circulation and stimulate the skin, it is invaluable, too, for the nervous and dyspeptic portion of young women among whom, unhappily, such complaints are but too prevalent. Dancing, which is the most frequent mode of exercise with ladies in great cities practiced, as it is, in heated rooms and exhausting from its violence, often does more harm than good, from producing languor and over-fatigue. Unhappily, there are but a few modes of exercise indoors adapted for women. If from any circumstance they are confined to their homes and they become feverish and languid from want of exercise, it never occurs to them to throw open the windows and to walk about, or to make use of battledore and shuttlecock, or any other mode of exertion. They continue sitting, reading, or walking, or lounging, or sleeping, or gossiping, whilst the bloom of health is rapidly giving place to the wanness and debility of the imprisoned frame. It is often the custom of young women to declare that they cannot walk, sometimes from indolence, no doubt, and want of habit, occasionally from real inability. But if we investigate the causes of this real inability, we shall often find it to proceed from an improper choice of time in taking exercise, or from a defective judgment in the manner of taking it. Many women exhaust and fatigue themselves with the duties of their house, and by 1,000 trying occupations, including that which forms a serious item in the day's work, namely running up and down the stairs, and then discover that they cannot walk. Others go to extremes and walk for a certain distance, whether they feel fatigued or not by such exertions. It is only, observes Dr. Combe, by a diffusion of the laws of exercise as a part of useful education that individuals can be enabled to avoid such mistakes. To be beneficial, exercise should always be proportioned to the strength and to the constitution of an individual. When it causes extreme fatigue or exhaustion, it is hurtful. It ought to be resumed always after a period of rest and adopted regularly, not, as too many persons are in the habit of doing, once in 4 or 5 days. The average walk which a young woman in good health and in ordinary circumstances may take, without undue and injurious fatigue, is from 4 to 5 miles a day. From this rule I except the very young. It has been found by experience that until 22 or 3, the strength is not completely matured. The rate of mortality, as it has been proved by statistical tables, increases in all classes of society from 14 until the age of 23, when it begins to decrease. Another precaution which I would recommend to those who have the regulation of families under their care relates to the subject of ventilation. The heated state of our rooms in ordinary occupation is one great source of all those mischiefs which arise from catching cold, a subject on which Mr. Abernathy was wont to declare that a very useful book might be written. There are some houses into which one can never enter with impunity from the want of due ventilation. Housemaids, more especially, have an insupportable objection to opening windows, on account of the dust which flies in and settles upon the furniture. This evil, for the soiling of furniture certainly may be called an evil, may easily be obviated by fastening a muslin blind against the open window, or by pinning a large piece of coarse muslin against it, so that the dusty particles will be excluded. Generally, our ordinary sitting rooms are tolerably well ventilated by the opening and shutting of doors, the size of the fireplace, etc. But in our bedrooms, the vitiation of the air is far greater, owing to these rooms being wholly closed during the 7 or 8 hours in which we sleep in them, and also owing to the mass of curtains with which we usually take care to surround our beds. In this respect, we are indeed improved by the introduction of French bedsteads, which are among the most valuable of modern suggestions. But notwithstanding this improvement, and many others which reflection and science have contributed to introduce, we incur much suffering from our ignorance and prejudice on the subject of ventilation. For generations, society has experienced the evil effects of the want of ventilation, and has felt in towns its result in the form of fevers, general ill health, cutaneous and nervous diseases. And yet the most direful ignorance continues on this subject. Hospitals are among the few well-ventilated buildings which are erected, because an idea prevails that ventilation is essential for the sick, but it seems to have been forgotten that what is essential for the recovery of health is equally necessary for its preservation. Were, said Dr. Combe, a general knowledge of the structure of man to constitute a regular part of a liberal education, such inconsistencies as this would soon disappear, and the scientific architect would speedily advise the best means for supplying our houses with pure air, as he has already supplied them with pure water. End of chapter 25.
Chapter 26 of the Ladies' Book of Etiquette and Manual of Politeness. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Penny Coffeen. The Ladies' Book of Etiquette and Manual of Politeness by Florence Hartley. Chapter 26, Miscellaneous. There are many little pieces of rudeness, only too common, which, while they evince ill-breeding, and are many of them extremely annoying, yet they are met with every day, and in persons otherwise well-bred. As they come under no particular head, they will merely be mentioned here as habits carefully to avoid. It is rude to look over the shoulder of a person who is either reading or writing, yet it is done every day. To stand with the arms akimbo, the hands on the hips, or with the arms crossed while conversing is exceedingly unladylike. Avoid restless movements, either with the hands or feet. To sit perfectly quiet without stiffness, easily, yet at the same time almost motionless, is one of the surest proofs of high breeding. If you wish to make yourself agreeable to anyone, talk as much as you please about his or her affairs and as little as possible about your own. Avoid passing before persons seated in the same room with yourself. If you must rise to move from place to place, endeavor to pass behind the chairs of your companions. Above all, never pass between two persons who are conversing together. Avoid personal remarks. They evince a want of judgment, good taste, kindness, and politeness. To exchange glances or significant smiles with a third person, whilst engage in a conversation with a second, is a proof of low breeding. Suppressed laughter, shrugging of the shoulders, rolling of the eyes, and significant glances are all marks of ill breeding. If you meet a gentleman at the foot of a flight of stairs, do not go up before him. Stop, bow, and motion to him to precede you. He will return your bow and run up, leaving you to follow him. Never whisper or make any confidential communication in company. Keep private remarks for private occasions. Accepting presents from gentlemen is a dangerous thing. It is better to avoid any such obligations, and if you make it a rule never to accept such presents, you will avoid hurting anyone's feelings and save yourself from all further perplexity. In meeting your elderly friends in the street, look at them long enough to give them an opportunity of recognizing you, and if they do so, return their salutations respectfully, not with the familiar nod you would give to one of your own age. Never remain seated whilst a person older than yourself is standing before you, talking to you. Never lounge on a sofa, while there are those in the room whose years give them a better claim to this sort of indulgence. Never tease a person to do what she has once declined. Never refuse a request or invitation in order to be urged and accept afterwards. Comply at once. If the request is sincere, you will thus afford gratification. If not, the individual making it deserves to be punished for insincerity by being taken at her word. It is not polite, when asked what part of a dish you will have, to say, "Any part, it is quite indifferent to me." It is hard enough to carve for one's friends without choosing for them. It is not polite to entertain a visitor with your own family history, or the events of your own household. It is not polite for married ladies to talk in the presence of gentlemen of the difficulty they have in procuring domestics, and how good for nothing they are when procured. It is not polite to put food upon the plate of a guest without asking leave, or to press her to eat more than she wants. It is not polite to stare under ladies' bonnets, as if you suspected they had stolen the linings from you, or wore something that was not their own. Never affect a foolish reserve in a mixed company, keeping aloof from others as if in a state of mental abstraction. If your brain is so full and so busy that you cannot attend to the little civilities, cheerful chit-chat, and light amusements of society, keep out of it. Never read in company. You may open a book to look over the engravings if you will, but do not attend to the letterpress until you are alone. Never jest upon serious subjects. Avoid scandal. If another person attempts to open a conversation upon scandalous matters, check her. Say gravely that it is painful for you to hear of the faults of misfortunes of others, where your counsel and assistance can be of no service. Many persons whose tongues never utter a scandalous word will, by a significant glance, a shrug of the shoulders, a sneer, or curl of the lip, really make more mischief, and suggest harder thoughts than if they used the severest language. This is utterly detestable. If you have your tongue under perfect control, you can also control your looks, and you are cowardly, contemptible, and wicked when you encourage and countenance slander by a look or gesture. Never speak of gentlemen by their first name unless you are related to them. It is very unladylike to use the surname without the prefix, Mr., To hear a lady speak of Smith, Brown, Anderson instead of Mr. Anderson or Mr. Smith sounds extremely vulgar and is a mark of low breeding. Avoid eccentricity either in dress, conversation, or manner. It is a form of vanity, as it will attract attention, and is therefore in bad taste. Never act as if in a hurry. Ease of action need not imply laziness, but simply polite self-possession. Never laugh at your own wit. That is the part of those who hear you, and if you take their duty from them, they may omit to join you in your laugh. Do not indulge in ridicule. It is coarse and unladylike, as well as unfeeling. Like every other personality, it should be carefully avoided. Never handle any ornament or article of furniture in the room in which you are a visitor. Do not lean your head against the wall. You leave an indelible mark upon the paper, or, if the wall is whitewashed, you give your hair a dingy, dusty look by bringing it into contact with the lime. Never lean forward upon a table. Let neither hands nor arms rest there heavily. To bestow flattery upon a person to his face betrays a want of delicacy, yet, not less so, rudely to rebuke his errors, or mention his faults, and not have a tender regard for his feelings. It is not improper, and may sometimes be very kind, to mention to an individual what yourself and others think of his conduct of performance, when it is for his interest or usefulness to know it. To express to a friend deserved approbation is generally proper. Nothing but a quick perception of the feelings of others, and a ready sympathy with them, can regulate the 1,000 little proprieties that belong to visits of condolence and congratulation. There is one hint, however, as regards the former, which may perhaps be useful, and that is, not to touch upon the cause of affliction, unless the mourner leads the way to it. And if a painful effort is made to appear cheerful and to keep aloof from the subject, do not make the slightest allusion that could increase this feeling. When at table, to press your guests to take more than they have inclination for is antiquated and rude. This does not, however, prevent your recommending particular dishes to their attention. Everything like compulsion is quite exploded. It is a great mistake to suppose that the best music is the most difficult of execution. The very reverse, generally speaking, is the case. Music of a high order certainly demands high gifts and attainments on the part of the performer, but the gifts of nature may be possessed by the amateur as well as by the professor, and the attainments of art may be the result of moderate study and application. A young lady possessed of a sweet and tunable voice, a good ear, intelligence, and feeling may cultivate music in its grandest and most beautiful forms, and may render its practice a source of the purest enjoyment, not only to herself, but to her domestic and social circle. The various ceremonies observed in refined society are very useful in settling little points, on which there might otherwise be much doubt and perplexity, but they should never be so strenuously insisted upon as to make an accidental omission of them a ground of resentment, and an apology should always be accepted in their place. Your enjoyment of a party depends far less on what you find there than on what you carry with you. The vain, the ambitious, the designing will be full of anxiety when they go, and of disappointment when they return. A short triumph will be followed by a deep mortification, and the selfishness of their aims defeats itself. If you go to see and to hear, and to make the best of whatever occurs, with the disposition to admire all that is beautiful, and to sympathize in the pleasures of others, you can hardly fail to spend the time pleasantly. The less you think of yourself and your claims to attention, the better. If you are much attended to, receive it modestly, and consider it as a happy accident. If you are little noticed, use your leisure in observing others. It were unjust and ungrateful to conceive that the amusements of life are altogether forbidden by its beneficent author. They serve, on the contrary, important purposes in the economy of human life, and are destined to produce important effects both upon our happiness and character. They are, in the first place, in the language of the psalmist, the wells of the desert, the kind resting places in which toil may relax, in which the weary spirit may recover its tone, and where the desponding mind may resume its strength and its hopes. It is not, therefore, the use of the innocent amusements of life which is dangerous, but the abuse of them. It is not when they are occasionally, but when they are constantly pursued, and when, from being on occasional indulgence, it becomes a habitual desire. Women in the middle rank are brought up with the idea that if they engage in some occupations, they shall lose their position in society. Suppose it to be so, surely it is wiser to quit a position we cannot honestly maintain, than to live dependent upon the bounty and caprice of others. Better to labor with our hands than eat the bread of idleness, or submit to feel that we must not give utterance to our real opinions, or express our honest indignation at being required to act a base or unworthy part. And in all cases, however situated, every female ought to learn how all household affairs are managed, were it only for the purpose of being able to direct others. There cannot be any disgrace in learning how to make the bread we eat, to cook our dinners, to mend our clothes, or even to clean the house. Better to be found busily engaged in removing the dust from the furniture than to let it accumulate there until a visitor leaves palpable traces where his hat or his arm have been laid upon a table. Never put temptation in a servant's way. Never be severe for trifling offenses, such as accidentally breaking anything, but reserve your severity for those offenses which are moral evils, such as a want of truth, general laxity of principle, etc. The orders given to servants should be clear and definite, and they should be trained as much as possible to perform their duties regularly, so that every morning they may know pretty nearly what will be expected of them during the day. It is a great point to live, when you are alone, as if you expected company, that is to say, to have everything so neat and orderly that you need not be ashamed of anyone seeing your table. It is very little more trouble and certainly no more expense, and the advantages in point of comfort are unspeakable. If a foolish girl, by dint of squeezing and bracing with busk and bones, secures the conventional beauty of a wasp waist, she is tolerably certain to gain an addition she by no means bargained for, a red nose, which, in numberless instances, is produced by no other cause than the unnatural girth, obstructing circulation and causing stagnation of the blood in that prominent and important feature. Often, in assemblages of the fair, we have seen noses faultless in form, but tinged with the abhorred hue, to which washes and cosmetics have been applied in wild despair, but in vain. If the lovely owners had known the cause, how speedily the effect would have vanished! For surely the most perverse admirer of a distorted spine and compressed lungs would deem the acquisition of a dram-drinker's nose too heavy a condition to be complied with. A well-bred woman will not demand, as a right, what she may have a claim to expect from the politeness of the other sex, nor show dissatisfaction and resentment if she fancies herself neglected. For want of good breeding, some females are exorbitant in their expectations, and appear unthankful even when everything is done which true politeness demands. Young women should guard against this unamiable defect. A well-bred person will take care not to use slang words and expressions. There never has been a time, at least in late years, when there have not been some 2 or 3 cant vulgarisms in vogue among all the blackguards of the country. Sometimes these phrases have been caught up from some popular song or farce. Sometimes, we believe, they have had their origin where assembles the collective wisdom of the country. A dozen of these terse but meaningless sayings now dance before our recollection, for who has not heard them even to loathing? But from whatever source they may have been drawn, or whatever wit there might be in their original position, the obtrusion of them into decent society is an unwarrantable piece of impertinence. A habit of inserting into familiar conversation such phrases as, "you know," "you perceive," "you understand," "says he," "says she," is, so far as those matters extend, a sign of a want of good breeding. With regard to any specific rules for dressing, we do not pretend to arbitrate in such matters. Let a true sense of propriety, of the fitness of things, regulate all your habits of living and dressing, and it will produce such a beautiful harmony and consistency of character as will throw a charm around you that all will feel, though few may comprehend. Always consider well whether the articles of dress which you wish to purchase are suited to your age, your condition, your means, to the climate, to the particular use to which you mean to put them, and let the principles of good taste keep you from the extremes of the fashion, and regulate the form so as to combine utility and beauty, whilst the known rules of harmony and colors save you from shocking the eye of the artist by incongruous mixtures. Manners, says the eloquent Edmund Burke, are of more importance than laws. Upon them, in a great measure, the laws depend. The law can touch us here and there, now and then. Manners are what vex or soothe, corrupt or purify, exalt or debase, barbarize or refine. By a constant, steady uniform, insensible operation, like that of the air we breathe in, they give their whole form and colors to our lives. According to their quality, they aid morals, they supply them, or they totally destroy them. 4 important rules. Order is heaven's first law. Number 1. A suitable place for everything, and everything in its place. Number 2. A proper time for everything, and everything done in its time. Number 3. A distinct name for everything, and everything called by its name. Number 4. A certain use for everything, and everything put to its use. Much time would be saved, many disputes avoided, numerous articles kept from being lost or injured, and constant confusion and disorder prevented by the strict observance of these 4 important rules. Dispense with ornaments altogether rather than wear mock jewelry. Depend upon it, silvery hair is better adapted to the faded cheeks of middle age than are tresses of nut brown or coal black, or any of the mysterious shades produced by a dirty decoction called hair dye. The habitual use of very thin shoes invariably makes the foot tender, and a host of other inconveniences arise therefrom. If you are tempted to purchase tight shoes, don't, for several reasons, but one may suffice. You will not wear them more than twice. If you are not quite certain of the line between neatness and the reverse, be over-scrupulous about your undergarments. The edge of a soiled petticoat, or the glimpse of a rent stocking, is singularly disenchanting. Men of sense, I speak not of boys of 18 to 25, during their age of detestability, men who are worth the trouble of falling in love with, and the fuss and inconvenience of being married to, and to whom one might, after some inward conflicts, and a course perhaps of fasting and self-humiliation, submit to fulfill those ill-contrived vows of obedience which are exacted at the altar. Such men want for their wives companions, not dolls, and women who would suit such men are just as capable of loving fervently, deeply, as the ringletina, full of song and sentiment, who cannot walk, cannot rise in the morning, cannot tie her bonnet strings, faints if she has to lace her boots, never in her life brushed out her beautiful hair, would not for the world prick her delicate finger with plain sewing, but who can work harder than a factory girl upon a lamb's wool shepherdess, dance like a dervish at balls, ride like a fox hunter, and, whilst every breath of air gives her cold in her father's house, and she cannot think how people can endure this climate, she can go out to parties in February and March with an inch of sleeve and half a quarter of bodice. All circumstances well examined, there can be no doubt Providence has willed that man should be the head of the human race, even as woman is its heart, that he should be its strength, and she is its solace, that he should be its wisdom, and she is its grace, that he should be its mind, its impetus, and its courage, as she is its sentiment, its charm, and its consolation. Too great an amelioration could not be effected, in our opinion, in the system generally adopted, which, far from correcting or even compensating the presumed intellectual inequality of the two sexes, generally serves only to increase it. By placing, for example, dancing and needlework at the extreme poles of female study, the one for its attraction and the other for its utility, and by not filling the immense interval with anything more valuable than mere monotonous, imperfect, superficial, and totally unphilosophical notions. This system has made of the greater number of female seminaries establishments which may be compared alike to nursery grounds for coquettes and sempstresses. It is never remembered that in domestic life conversation is of more importance than the needle or choreography, that a husband is neither a pacha nor a lazzarone, who must be perpetually intoxicated or unceasingly patched, that there are upon the conjugal dial many long hours of calm intimacy, of cool contemplation, of cold tenderness, and that the husband makes another home elsewhere if his own hearth offers him only silence, or what is 100 times worse, merely frivolous and monotonous discourse. Let the woman play the gossip at a given moment. That is all very well. Let her superintend the laundry or the kitchen at another. That is also very well. But these duties only comprise 2/3 of her mission. Ought care not to be taken that during the rest of her time she could also be capable of becoming to her husband a rational friend, a cheerful partner, an interesting companion, or at least an efficient listener, whose natural intelligence, even if originally inferior to his own, shall, by the help of education, have been raised to the same level. Pascal says, kind words do not cost much. They never blister the tongue or lips, and we have never heard of any mental trouble arising from this quarter. Though they do not cost much, 1, they help one's own good nature. Soft words soften our own soul. Angry words are fuel to the flame of wrath and make it blaze more fiercely. 2, kind words make other people good-natured. Cold words freeze people, and hot words scorch them, and bitter words make them bitter, and wrathful words make them wrathful. There is such a rush of all other kinds of words in our days that it seems desirable to give kind words a change among them. There are vain words, and idle words, and hasty words, and spiteful words, and silly words, and empty words, and profane words, and boisterous words, and warlike words. Kind words also produce their own image on men's souls, and a beautiful image it is. They smooth and quiet and comfort the hearer. They shame him out of his sour, morose, unkind feelings. We have not yet begun to use kind words in such abundance as they ought to be used. a writer in the New York Observer, speaking of the necessity of guarding the tongue, says, "It is always well to avoid saying everything that is improper, but it is especially so before children, and here parents, as well as others, are often in fault. Children have as many ears as grown persons, and they are generally more attentive to what is said before them. What they hear, they are very apt to repeat, and as they have no discretion, and not sufficient knowledge of the world to disguise anything, it is generally found that children and fools speak the truth. See that boys' eyes glisten while you are speaking of a neighbor in a language you would not wish to have repeated. He does not fully understand what you mean, but he will remember every word, and it will be strange if he does not cause you to blush by the repetition." A gentleman was in the habit of calling at a neighbor's house, and the lady had always expressed to him great pleasure from his calls. One day, just after she had remarked to him as usual her happiness from his visit, her little boy entered the room. The gentleman took him on his knee and asked, "Are you not glad to see me, George?" "No, sir," replied the boy. "Why not, my little man?" he continued. "Because mother don't want you to come," said George. "Indeed, how do you know that, George?" Here the mother became crimson, and looked daggers at her little son. But he saw nothing, and therefore replied, "Because she said yesterday she wished that old boor would not call here again." That was enough. The gentleman's hat was soon in requisition, and he left with the impression that great is the truth, and it will prevail. Another little child looked sharply in the face of a visitor, and being asked what she meant by it, replied, "I wanted to see if you had a drop in your eye. I heard mother say you had frequently." A boy once asked one of his father's guests who it was that lived next door to him, and when he heard his name, inquired if he was not a fool. "No, my little friend," replied the guest, "he is not a fool, but a very sensible man. But why did you ask that question?" "Because," replied the boy, "mother said the other day that you were next door to a fool, and I wanted to know who lived next door to you." The best way to overcome the selfishness and rudeness you sometimes meet with on public occasions is by great politeness and disinterestedness on your part. Overcome evil with good, and you will satisfy your own conscience, and perhaps touch theirs. Contending for your rights stirs up the selfish feelings in others, but a readiness to yield them awakens generous sentiments, and leads to mutual accommodation. The more refined you are, and the greater have been your advantages, the more polite and considerate you should be toward others, the more ready to give place to some poor, uneducated girl who knows no better than to push herself directly in your way. Politeness is as necessary to a happy intercourse with the inhabitants of the kitchen as with those of the parlor. It lessens the pains of service, promotes kind feelings on both sides, and checks unbecoming familiarity. Always thank them for what they do for you, and always ask rather than command their services. Of late years, the wearing of jewelry, in season and out of season, both by matrons and unmarried females, has increased vastly. It is an indication that the growing wealth of the people is not accompanied by a corresponding refinement, but that the love of vulgar show, the low pride of ostentation, takes the place of a pure and elevated taste. The emulation with fashionable dames, nowadays, so far from being, as with the Spartan women, to excel each other in household virtues, is to wear the largest diamonds, and in this ambition they forget fitness, beauty, taste, everything but the mere vulgar desire to shine. To be gracefully and elegantly attired, in short, is secondary to the desire to be a sort of jeweler's walking show card. We do not oppose the use of diamonds and pearls altogether, as some persons might imagine from these remarks. A few diamonds, judiciously worn, look well on proper occasions on married women. But young girls rarely or never improve their appearance by the use of these dazzling jewels, and as a general rule, the simpler the costume of a woman in her teens, the better. Women are usually pretty up to the age of 20 at least. Consequently, at this period of life, there are few whom an elaborate attire does not injure. A simple dress or a rosebud in the hair is frequently all that is required, and more only spoils that combination of youthfulness, grace, and modesty, which it should be the highest ambition of the girl to attain, because, if she did not know it, it is her highest charm. Instead of this, however, we see gay females scarcely freed from the nursery, wearing enormous jeweled eardrops, or sporting on the finger a diamond ring as large as a sixpence. Sometimes, too, ladies pretending to be well-bred descend to receive a morning visitor of their own sex, glittering like a jeweler's case, with costly gems. In all this, we repeat, there is neither refinement nor elegance, but simply vulgar ostentation. Female dress has ceased to be a means of beautifying the person or displaying the wearer's taste, and has become instead a mere brag of the husband's or father's wealth. A knowledge of domestic duties is beyond all price to a woman. Every one of the sex ought to know how to sew and knit and mend and cook and superintend a household. In every situation of life, high or low, this sort of knowledge is of great advantage. There is no necessity that the gaining of such information should interfere with intellectual acquirement, or even elegant accomplishment. A well-regulated mind can find time to attend to all. When a girl is 9 or 10 years old, she should be accustomed to take some regular share in household duties, and to feel responsible for the manner in which her part is performed, such as her own mending, washing the cups and putting them in place, cleaning silver, or dusting and arranging the parlor. This should not be done occasionally, and neglected whenever she finds it convenient. She should consider it her department. When older than 12, girls should begin to take turns in superintending the household, making puddings, pies, cakes, etc. To learn effectually, they should actually do these themselves, and not stand by and see others do them. Many a husband has been ruined for want of these domestic qualities in a wife, and many a husband has been saved from ruin by his wife being able to manage well the household concerns. It is a mark not only of ill breeding, but of positive want of feeling and judgment, to speak disparagingly of a physician to one of his patients. Many persons visiting an invalid friend will exclaim loudly against the treatment pursued, recommend a different doctor, and add to the sufferings of the patient by their injudicious remarks upon the medicines or practice used. It is too much the fashion in conversation to use exaggerated expressions which are opposed to truth, without the person employing them being aware of it, from the mere force of habit. Why need we say splendid for pretty, magnificent for handsome, horrid for unpleasant, immense for large, thousands or myriads for any number more than 2? This practice is pernicious, for the effect is to deprive the person who is guilty of it from being believed when she is in earnest. No one can trust the testimony of an individual who, in common conversation, is indifferent to the import, and regardless of the value of words. Politeness is very essential to the right transaction of that great business of woman's life, shopping. The variety afforded by the shops of a city renders people difficult to please, and the latitude they take in examining and asking the price of goods which they have no thought of buying is so trying to the patience of those who attend upon them, that nothing but the most perfect courtesy of demeanor can reconcile them to it. Some persons behave in shopping as if no one had any rights or any feelings but the purchasers, as if the sellers of goods were mere automatons, put behind the counter to do their bidding. They keep them waiting whilst they talk of other things with a friend. They call for various goods, ask the price, and try to cheapen them without any real intention of buying. A lady who wants decision of character, after hesitating and debating, till the poor trader's patience is almost exhausted, will beg him to send the article to her house, for her to examine it there, and after giving him all this trouble, she will refuse to purchase it, without any scruple or apology. Some think they have a right to exchange articles at the place where they were bought, whereas that privilege should be asked as a favor only by a good customer, and then but rarely. End of chapter 26.
Chapter 27, Part 1 of The Ladies' Book of Etiquette and Manual of Politeness. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Shelly Weingart. The Ladies' Book of Etiquette and Manual of Politeness by Florence Hartley. Chapter 27, Receipts, Part 1. For the Complexion. Cold Cream 1. Take 2½ ounces of sweet oil of almonds, 3 drachms of white wax, and the same of spermaceti, 2½ ounces of rose water, 1 drachm of oil of bergamot, and 15 drops each of oil of lavender and otto of roses. Melt the wax and spermaceti in the oil of almonds by placing them together in a jar, which should be plunged into boiling water. Heat a mortar, which should if possible be marble, by pouring boiling water into it and letting it remain there until the mortar is uniformly heated. The water is to be poured away and the mortar dried well. Pour the melted wax and spermaceti into the warm mortar and add rose water gradually, while the mixture is constantly stirred or whisked with an egg whisk until the whole is cold, and when nearly finished, add the oils and otto of roses. In the absence of a mortar, a basin plunged into another containing boiling water will answer the purpose. Cold Cream 2. Take 10 drachms of spermaceti, 4 drachms of white wax, half a pound of prepared lard, 15 grains of subcarbonate of potash, 4 ounces of rose water, 2 ounces of spirits of wine, and 10 drops of otto of roses. Proceed as above. Some persons prefer orange flower water instead of rose water, in which case use the same proportions. Cold cream is a useful local application to hard and dry parts of the skin, to abrasions and cracks. When spread thickly upon a rag, it is an excellent application to blistered surfaces or burns, or may be used to protect exposed parts from the influence of the sun. Granulated cold cream. Take white wax and spermaceti of each 1 ounce, almond oil 3 ounces, otto of rose, as much as you please. Dissolve the wax and spermaceti in the almond oil by means of heat, and when a little cool, pour the mixture into a large Wedgwood mortar, previously warmed, and containing about a pint of warm water. Stir briskly until the cream is well divided. Add the otto, and suddenly pour the whole into a clean vessel containing 8 or 12 pints of cold water. Separate the cream by straining through muslin, and shake out as much water as possible. White camphorated ointment 1. Take 3 ounces 2 drachms of powdered carbonate of lead, cerussa, 45 grains of powdered camphor. Mix and then stir into 5 ounces of melted lard. This is applied to burns and contusions with very good effect. and is much used in Austria. The surface must not be abraded when it is applied. White camphorated ointment, 2. Take 4 ounces of olive oil, 1 ounce of white wax, 2 grains of camphor, and 6 drachms of spermaceti. Melt the wax and spermaceti with the oil, and when they have cooled, rub the ointment with the camphor dissolved in a little oil. Sometimes the white wax is omitted and lard substituted for it. It is useful in chaps, fissures, abrasions, and roughness of the skin. Pitch pomade, 1. Take 1 drachm of pitch and 1 ounce of lard. Mix well and apply twice a day to the affected parts. This is used for ringworm and scald head, to soften the skin and improve the complexion. If flowers of sulphur be mixed in a little milk, and after standing an hour or 2, the milk, without disturbing the sulphur, be rubbed into the skin, it will keep it soft and make the complexion clear. It is to be used before washing. To remove black stains from the skin. Ladies that wear mourning in warm weather are much incommoded by the blackness it leaves on the arms and neck, and which cannot easily be removed, even by soap and warm water. To have a remedy always at hand, keep in the drawer of your washstand a box containing a mixture in equal portions of cream of tartar and oxalic acid, poison. Get at a druggist's half an ounce of each of these articles and have them mixed and pounded together in a mortar. Put some of this mixture into a cup that has a cover, and if afterwards it becomes hard, you may keep it slightly moistened with water. See that it is always closely covered. To use it, wet the black stains on your skin with the corner of a towel dipped in water. Warm water is best, but is not always at hand. Then, with your finger, rub on a little of the mixture. Then immediately wash it off with water, and afterwards with soap and water, and the black stains will be visible no longer. This mixture will also remove ink and all other stains from the fingers, and from white clothes. It is more speedy in its effect if applied with warm water. No family should be without it, but care must be taken to keep it out of the way of young children, as, if swallowed, it is poisonous. Pastes. Almond. Take 1 ounce of bitter almonds, blanch and pound them to a fine powder, then add 1 ounce of barley flour and make it into a smooth paste by the addition of a little honey. When this paste is laid over the skin, particularly where there are freckles, it makes it smooth and soft. Palatine. Take 8 ounces of soft soap, of olive oil, and spirits of wine, each 4 ounces, 1½ ounces of lemon juice, sufficient silver sand to form into a thick paste, and any perfume that is grateful to the person. Boil the oil and soap together in a pipkin, and then gradually stir in the sand and lemon juice. When nearly cool, add the spirit of wine, and lastly the perfume. Make into a paste with the hands and place in jars or pots for use. This paste is used instead of soap, and is a valuable addition to the toilette, as it preserves the skin from chapping and renders it smooth and soft. American cosmetic powder. Calcinated magnesia applied the same as ordinary toilette powders by means of a swan's down ball, usually called a puff. Malwan. Take 4 ounces of powdered marshmallow roots, 2 ounces of powdered white starch, 3 drachms of powdered orris root, and 20 drops of essence of jasmine. Mix well and sift through fine muslin. This is one of the most agreeable and elegant cosmetics yet known for softening and whitening the skin, preserving it from chapping, and being so simple that it may be applied to the most delicate or irritable skin. This receipt has never before been published, and we know that only 6 bottles of it have been made. Oxide of zinc is sprinkled into chaps and fissures to promote their cure. Yaulta. Take 1 ounce of white starch, powdered and sifted, half a dram of rose pink, 10 drops of essence of jasmine, and 2 drops of otto of roses. Mix and keep in a fine muslin bag. This exquisite powder is to be dusted over the face, and being perfectly harmless, may be used as often as necessity requires. It also imparts a delicate rosy tinge to the skin, preferable to rouge. Crème de l'Enclos. Take 4 ounces of milk, 1 ounce of lemon juice, and 2 drams of spirit of wine. Simmer over a slow fire, and then bring it to the boil. Skim off the scum, and when cold, apply it to the skin. It is much used by some persons to remove freckles and sunburnings. Washes and lotions. Milk of roses 1. Take 2 ounces of blanched almonds, 12 ounces of rose water, white soft soap, or Windsor soap, white wax, and oil of almonds, of each 2 drams, rectified spirit 3 ounces, oil of bergamot 1 dram, oil of lavender 15 drops, otto of roses 8 drops. Beat the almonds well, and then add the rose water gradually so as to form an emulsion. Mix the soap, white wax, and oil together by placing them in a covered jar upon the edge of the fireplace. Then rub this mixture into a mortar with the emulsion. Strain the whole through very fine muslin, and add the essential oils previously mixed with the spirit. This is an excellent wash for sunburns, freckles, or for cooling the face and neck, or any part of the skin to which it is applied. Milk of roses 2. This is not quite so expensive a receipt as the last, and at the same time is not so good. Take 1 ounce of Jordan almonds, 5 ounces of distilled rose water, 1 ounce of spirit of wine, 1/2 a dram of Venetian soap, and 2 drops of otto of roses. Beat the almonds, previously blanched and well dried with a cloth, in a mortar until they become a complete paste. Then beat the soap and mix with the almonds, and afterwards add the rose water and spirit. Strain through a very fine muslin or linen, and add the otto of roses. The common milk of roses sold in the shops frequently contains salt of tartar or pearl ash, combined with olive oil and rose water, and therefore it is better to make it yourself to ensure it being good. French milk of roses. Mix 2½ pints of rose water with a 1/2 pint of rosemary water, then add tincture of storax and tincture of benzoin of each 2 ounces, and esprit de rose 1/2 ounce. This is a useful wash for freckles. German milk of roses. Take of rose water and milk of almonds each 3 ounces. Water 8 ounces, rosemary water 2 ounces, and spirit of lavender 1/2 ounce. Mix well and then add 1/2 ounce of sugar of lead. This is a dangerous form to leave about where there are children, and should never be applied when there are any abrasions or chaps on the surface. Milk of almonds. Blanch 4 ounces of Jordan almonds, dry them with the towel, and then pound them in a mortar. Add 2 drams of white or curd soap. and rub it up with the almonds for about 10 minutes or rather more, gradually adding 1 quart of rose water until the whole is well mixed. Then strain through a fine piece of muslin and bottle for use. This is an excellent remedy for freckles and sunburns, and may be used as a general cosmetic, being applied to the skin after washing by means of the corner of a soft towel. Anti-Freckle Lotion 1. Take tincture of benzoin, 2 ounces, tincture of tolu, 1 ounce, oil of rosemary, half a dram. Mix well and bottle. When required to be used, add a teaspoonful of the mixture to about a wineglassful of water and apply the lotion to the face or hands, etc., night and morning, carefully rubbing it in with a soft towel. Anti-Freckle Lotion 2. Take 1 ounce of rectified spirit of wine, 1 dram of hydrochloric acid, spirit of salt, and 7 ounces of water. Mix the acid gradually with the water, and then add the spirit of wine. Apply by means of a camel's hair brush or a piece of flannel. Gowland's Lotion. Take 1½ grains of bichloride of mercury and 1 ounce of emulsion of bitter almonds. Mix well. Be careful of the bichloride of mercury because it is a poison. This is one of the best cosmetics for imparting a delicate appearance and softness to the skin, and is a useful lotion in acne, ringworm, hard and dry skin, and sun blisterings. Cold cream. Sweet almond oil, 7 pounds by weight, white wax, 3/4 pound, spermaceti, 3/4 pound, clarified mutton suet, 1 pound, rose water, 7 pints, spirits of wine, 1 pint. Directions to mix the above. Place the oil, wax, spermaceti, and suet in a large jar. Cover it over tightly, then place it in a saucepan of boiling water, having previously placed 2 or more pieces of firewood at the bottom of the saucepan to allow the water to get underneath the jar and to prevent its breaking. Keep the water boiling round the jar till all the ingredients are dissolved. Take it out of the water and pour it into a large pan previously warmed and capable of holding 21 pints. Then, with a wooden spatula, stir in the rose water, cold, as quickly as possible, dividing it into 3 or 4 parts at most, the stirring of which should not occupy above 5 minutes, as after a certain heat the water will not mix. When all the water is in, stir unremittingly for 30 minutes longer, to prevent its separating. Then add the spirits of wine and the scent, and it is finished. Keep it in a cold place, in a white glazed jar, and do not cut it with a steel knife, as it causes blackness at the parts of contact. Scent with otto of roses and essential oil of bergamot to fancy. For smaller quantities, make ounces instead of pounds. Palm soap. I make it in the following manner. Cut thin 2 pounds of yellow soap into a double saucepan, occasionally stirring it till it is melted, which will be in a few minutes if the water is kept boiling around it. Then add 1/4 pound of palm oil, 1/4 pound of honey, 3 pennyworth of true oil of cinnamon. Let all boil together another 6 or 8 minutes. Pour out and stand it by till next day. It is then fit for immediate use. If made as these directions, it will be found to be a very superior soap. Cure for chapped hands. Take 3 drams of gum camphor, 3 drams of white beeswax, 3 drams of spermaceti, 2 ounces of olive oil. Put them together in a cup upon the stove, where they will melt slowly and form a white ointment in a few minutes. If the hands be affected, anoint them on going to bed, and put on a pair of gloves. A day or two will suffice to heal them. To whiten the nails. Diluted sulfuric acid, 2 drams. Tincture of myrrh, 1 dram. Spring water, 4 ounces. Mix. First cleanse with white soap, then dip the fingers into the mixture. To whiten the hands. Take a wineglassful of eau de cologne and another of lemon juice. Then scrape 2 cakes of brown Windsor soap to a powder and mix well in a mold. When hard, it will be an excellent soap for whitening the hands. For the teeth. To remove tartar from the teeth. First, the use of the toothbrush night and morning, and at least rinsing the mouth after every meal at which animal food is taken. Second, once daily, run the brush lightly 2 or 3 times over soap, then dip it in salt, and with it clean the teeth, working the brush up and down rather than, or as well as, backwards and forwards. This is a cheap, safe, and effectual dentifrice. Third, eat freely of common cress, the sort used with mustard under the name of small salad. It must be eaten with salt only. If thus used 2 or 3 days in succession, it will effectually loosen tartar, even of long standing. The same effect is produced, though perhaps not in an equal degree, by eating strawberries and raspberries, especially the former. A leaf of common green sage rubbed into the teeth is useful both in cleansing and polishing, and probably many other common vegetable productions also. Care of the teeth. The water with which the teeth are cleansed should be what is called lukewarm. They should be well but gently brushed both night and morning. The brush should be neither too hard nor too soft. The best tooth powders are made from cuttlefish, prepared chalk, and orris root commingled together in equal quantities. Simple means of removing tartar from the teeth. In these summer months, tartar may be effectually removed from the teeth by partaking daily of strawberries. Tooth powder. Powdered orris root, 1/2 ounce. Powdered charcoal, 2 ounces. Powdered Peruvian bark, 1 ounce. Prepared chalk, 1/2 ounce. Oil of bergamot or lavender, 20 drops. These ingredients must be well worked up in a mortar until thoroughly incorporated. This celebrated tooth powder possesses 3 essential virtues: giving an odorous breath, cleansing and purifying the gums, and preserving the enamel, the last rarely found in popular tooth powders. Tooth powder. One of the best tooth powders that can be used may be made by mixing together 1½ ounces prepared chalk, 1/2 ounce powder of bark, and 1/4 ounce of camphor. A cheap but good tooth powder. Cut a slice of bread as thick as may be into squares, and burn in the fire until it becomes charcoal, after which pound in a mortar and sift through a fine muslin. It is then ready for use. Cheap and invaluable dentifrice. Dissolve 2 ounces of borax in 3 pints of water. Before quite cold, add thereto 1 teaspoonful of tincture of myrrh and 1 tablespoonful of spirits of camphor. Bottle the mixture for use. 1 wineglass of the solution, added to 1/2 pint of tepid water, is sufficient for each application. This solution, applied daily, preserves and beautifies the teeth, extirpates all tartarous adhesion, produces a pearl-like whiteness, arrests decay, and induces a healthy action in the gums. Invaluable dentifrice. Dissolve 2 ounces of borax in 3 pints of boiling water. Before quite cold, add 1 teaspoonful of tincture of myrrh and 1 tablespoonful of spirits of camphor. Bottle the mixture for use. 1 wineglassful of this solution added to half a pint of tepid water is sufficient for each application. For the hair. Loss of hair. The most simple remedy for loss of hair is friction to the scalp of the head, using for the purpose an old toothbrush, or one of which the bristles have been softened by soaking in boiling water. The shape of the instrument adapts it to be inserted readily and effectually between the hair, where it should be rubbed backwards and forwards over the space of an inch or so at a time. In addition to the friction, which should be used once or twice a day, the head may be showered once a day with cold water, carefully drying it with soft spongy towels. Pomatum. Take of white mutton suet 4 pounds, well boiled in hot water, 3 quarts, and washed to free it from salt. Melt the suet when dried with 1½ pounds of fresh lard and 2 pounds of yellow wax. Pour into an earthen vessel and stir till it is cold. Then beat into it 30 drops of oil of cloves, or any other essential oil whose scent you prefer. If this kind of pomatum is too hard, use less wax. At times, numbers of loose hairs come away in the brushing or combing. Such cases as these will generally be found remedial. Wilson recommends women with short hair to dip their heads into cold water every morning, and afterwards apply the brush until a glow of warmth is felt all over the scalp. Those who have long hair are to brush it till the skin beneath becomes red, when a lotion is to be applied as here specified. Eau de cologne 2 ounces. Tincture of cantharides 1/2 ounce. Oil of nutmegs 1/2 dram. Oil of lavender 10 drops, to be mixed well together. Another is composed of Mezereon bark in small pieces 1 ounce. Horseradish root in small pieces 1 ounce. Boiling distilled vinegar 1/2 pint. Let this infusion stand for a week and then strain through muslin for use. If irritating to the skin, these lotions can be made weaker or less frequently applied than might otherwise be necessary. Either of them, or distilled vinegar alone, may be rubbed into a bald patch with a toothbrush. The same lotions may also be used if the hair is disposed to become gray too early, as they invigorate the apparatus situated beneath the skin and enable it to take up coloring matter. Dyeing of the hair is a practice which ought never to be resorted to. Those who are unwilling or unable to discontinue the practice of applying some kind of dressing to the hair should at least content themselves with a simple yet good material. The best olive oil is most suitable for the purpose, scented with otto of roses or bergamot. The latter, as many persons know, is the essence of a species of mint. The same scents may also be used for pomatum, which should be made of perfectly pure lard or marrow. Hair oils, etc. When used moderately, oils, ointments, etc. tend to strengthen the hair, especially when it is naturally dry. When used in excess, however, they clog the pores, prevent the escape of natural secretions, and cause the hair to wither and fall off. The varieties of oils, greases, ointments, rivaling each other in their high-sounding pretensions, which are daily imposed upon public credulity, are interminable. We add 1 or 2 of the most simple. For thickening the hair, to 1 ounce of Palma Christi oil, add a sufficient quantity of bergamot or lavender to scent it. Apply it to the parts where it is most needed, brushing it well into the hair. An ointment for the hair. Mix 2 ounces of bear's grease, half an ounce of honey, 1 dram of laudanum, 3 drams of the powder of southernwood, 3 drams of the balsam of Peru, and 1½ drams of the ashes of the roots of bulrushes, and a small quantity of the oil of sweet almonds. Macassar oil. It is said to be compounded of the following ingredients. To 3 quarts of common oil, add half a pint of spirits of wine, 3 ounces of cinnamon powder, and 2 ounces of bergamot. Heat the whole in a large pipkin. On removing from the fire, add 3 or 4 small pieces of alkanet root and keep the vessel closely covered for several hours. When cool, it may be filtered through a funnel lined with filtering paper. Whether oils are used or not, the hair ought night and morning to be carefully and elaborately brushed. This is one of the best preservatives of its beauty. The following is recommended as an excellent hair oil. Boil together half a pint of port wine, 1 pint and a half of sweet oil, and half a pound of green southernwood. Strain the mixture through a linen rag several times, adding at the last operation 2 ounces of bear's grease. If fresh southernwood is added each time it passes through the linen, the composition will be improved. Pomade Victoria. This highly praised and excellent pomade is made in the following way, and if so made, will be found to give a beautiful gloss and softness to the hair. 1/4 pound of honey and half an ounce of beeswax, simmered together for a few minutes and then strain. Add oil of almonds, lavender, and thyme, half a dram each. Be sure to continue stirring till quite cold, or the honey and wax will separate. Lemon pomatum. Best lard 2 pounds, suet half a pound. Dissolve with a gentle heat and mix them well together. Then add 4 ounces of orange flower water and 4 ounces of rose water, and mix them well together before adding, or they will separate. Having done this, add 1/4 ounce of essence of lemon, half a dram of musk, and half a dram of oil of thyme. To color pomatum: yellow by palm oil or annatto, red by alkanet root, and green by guaiacum or the green leaves of parsley. Bandoline for the hair, a French receipt. To 1 quart of water put ½ ounce of quince pips. Boil it nearly an hour, stirring it well. Strain it through a fine muslin. Let it stand 24 hours, and then add 14 drops of the essential oil of almonds. A dessert spoonful of brandy may be added, if required, to keep a long time. Bandoline for the hair. Take of castor oil 2 ounces, spermaceti 1 dram, oil of bergamot 1 dram. Mix with heat and strain, then beat in 6 drops otto of roses. If wished colored, add half a dram of annatto. Another. I furnish you with an excellent form of bandoline, much more quickly made than others. Have a small packet of powdered gum dragon by you, and when you require any fresh bandoline, take a teaspoonful of the powder and pour enough of boiling water onto it to make a small bottle full. Scent with otto of roses. Curling fluid. Place 2 pounds of common soap, cut small, into 3 pints of spirits of wine, with 8 ounces of potash, and melt the whole, stirring it with a clean piece of wood. Add, on cooling, essence of amber, vanilla, and neroli of each 1/4 ounce. The best method of keeping ringlets in curl is the occasional application of the yolk of an egg and the hair afterwards well washed in lukewarm water. Apply the egg with a tooth or hairbrush. For the lips, very excellent lip salve. Take 4 ounces of butter, fresh from the churn, cut it small, put it into a jar, cover it with good rose water, and let it remain 4 or 5 days. Then drain it well, and put it into a small and very clean saucepan with 1 ounce of spermaceti and 1 of yellow beeswax sliced thin, 1/4 ounce of bruised alkanet root, 2 drachms of gum benzoin, and 1 of storax, beaten to powder, 1/2 ounce of loaf sugar, and the strained juice of a moderate-sized lemon. Simmer these gently, keeping them stirred all the time until the mixture looks very clear and sends forth a fine aromatic odor. Then strain it through a thin doubled muslin and stir to it from 12 to 20 drops of essential oil of roses, and pour into small gallipots, from which it can easily be turned out when cold, and then be rubbed against the lips, which is the most pleasant way of using it, as it is much firmer than common lip salve, and will be found more healing and infinitely more agreeable. When butter cannot be had direct from the churn, any which is quite fresh may be substituted for it, after the salt has been well washed and soaked out of it, by working it with a strong spoon in cold water, in which it should remain for a couple of days or more, the water being frequently changed during the time. Rose lip salve. 8 ounces sweet almond oil, 4 ounces prepared mutton suet, 1½ ounces white wax, 2 ounces spermaceti, 20 drops otto. Steep a small quantity of alkanet root in the oil, and strain before using. Melt the suet, wax, and spermaceti together, then add the caloric oil and otto. Lip salves. A good lip salve may be made as follows. Take 1 ounce of the oil of sweet almonds, cold drawn, a drachm of fresh mutton suet, and a little bruised alkanet root, and simmer the whole together in an earthen pipkin. Instead of the oil of sweet almonds, you may use oil of jasmine or oil of any other flower, if you intend the lip salve to have a fragrant odor. 2. Take a pound of fresh butter, 1/4 pound of beeswax, 4 or 5 ounces of cleansed black grapes, and about 1 ounce of bruised alkanet root. Simmer them together over a slow fire till the wax is wholly dissolved, and the mixture becomes of a bright red color. Strain and put it by for use. 3. Oil of almonds, spermaceti, white wax, and white sugar candy, equal parts, form a good white lip salve. Superior lip salve. White wax, 2½ ounces, spermaceti, 3/4 ounce, oil of almonds, 4 ounces. Mix well together and apply a little to the lips at night. Another. A dessert spoonful of salad oil in a saucer. Hold it over a candle and drop melted wax over it till the oil is thinly covered. When they are incorporated, pour it into boxes. Wax taper will do. For corns. Cure for corns. Place the feet for half an hour, 2 or 3 nights successively, in a pretty strong solution of common soda. The alkali dissolves the indurated cuticle, and the corn falls out spontaneously, leaving a small excavation, which soon fills up. To remove corns, get 4 ounces of white diachylon plaster, 4 ounces of shoemaker's wax, and 60 drops of muriatic acid or spirits of salt. Boil them for a few minutes in an earthen pipkin, and when cold, roll the mass between the hands and apply a little on a piece of white leather. A certain cure for soft corns. Dip a piece of soft linen rag in turpentine and wrap it round the toe on which the soft corn is, night and morning. In a few days the corn will disappear, but the relief is instantaneous. Perfumes. To make eau de cologne, rectified spirits of wine, 4 pints, oil of bergamot, 1 ounce, oil of lemon, ½ an ounce, oil of rosemary, ½ a dram, oil of neroli, 3/4 of a dram, oil of English lavender, 1 dram, oil of oranges, 1 dram. Mix well and then filter. If these proportions are too large, smaller ones may be used. Eau de cologne. Oil of neroli, citron, bergamot, orange, and rosemary, of each 12 drops. Cardamom seeds, 1 dram. Spirits of wine, 1 pint. Let it stand for a week. Lavender water. Oil of lavender, 2 drams. Oil of bergamot, ½ dram. Essence of musk, 1 dram. Spirits of wine, 13 ounces. Water, 5 ounces. Let it stand for a week. End of Chapter 27, Part 1. Chapter 27, Part 2 of the Ladies' Book of Etiquette and Manual of Politeness. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Shelly Weingart. The Ladies' Book of Etiquette and Manual of Politeness by Florence Hartley. Receipts, Part 2. For keeping the wardrobe in order. To clean kid gloves, make a strong lather with curd soap and warm water in which steep a small piece of new flannel. Place the glove on a flat, clean, and unyielding surface, such as the bottom of a dish, and having thoroughly soaped the flannel, when squeezed from the lather, rub the kid till all dirt be removed, cleaning and re-soaping the flannel from time to time. Care must be taken to omit no part of the glove by turning the fingers, etc. The gloves must be dried in the sun or before a moderate fire, and will present the appearance of old parchment. When quite dry, they must be gradually pulled out and will look new. Another. First see that your hands are clean, then put on the gloves and wash them, as though you were washing your hands in a basin of spirits of turpentine, until quite clean. Then hang them up in a warm place, or where there is a good current of air, which will carry off all smell of the turpentine. This method was brought from Paris, and thousands of dollars have been made by it. To clean colored kid gloves. Have ready on a table a clean towel, folded 3 or 4 times, a saucer of new milk, and another saucer with a piece of brown soap. Take 1 glove at a time and spread it smoothly on the folded towel, then dip in the milk a piece of clean flannel. Rub it on the soap till you get off a tolerable quantity, then, with the wet flannel, commence rubbing the glove. Begin at the wrist and rub lengthwise toward the end of the fingers, holding the glove firmly in your right hand. Continue this process until the glove is well cleaned all over with the milk and soap. When done, spread them out and pin them on a line to dry gradually. When nearly dry, pull them out evenly, the cross way of the leather. When quite dry, stretch them on your hands. White kid gloves may also be washed in this manner, provided they have never been cleaned with India rubber. To clean white or colored kid gloves, put the glove on your hand, then take a small piece of flannel, dip it in camphene, and well but gently rub it over the glove, taking care not to make it too wet. When the dirt is removed, dip the flannel, or another piece if that is become too dirty, into pipe clay, and rub it over the glove. Take it off and hang it up in a room to dry. And in a day or two, very little smell will remain. And if done carefully, they will be almost as good as new. In colored ones, if yellow, use gamboge after the pipe clay, and for other colors, match it in dry paint. To clean white kid gloves. Stretch the gloves on a clean board and rub all the soiled or greased spots with cream of tartar or magnesia. Let them rest an hour. Then have ready a mixture of alum and fuller's earth, both powdered, and rub it all over the gloves with a brush, a clean toothbrush or something similar, and let them rest for an hour or two. Then sweep it all off and go over them with a flannel dipped in a mixture of bran and finely powdered whiting. Let them rest an hour, then brush off the powder, and you will find them clean. To clean light kid gloves. Put on one glove, and having made a strong lather with common brown soap, apply it with a shaving brush, wiping it off immediately with the clean towel. Then blow into the glove and leave it to dry. An excellent paste for gloves. Liquor of ammonia, 1/2 ounce, chloride of potash, 10 ounces, curd soap, 1 pound, water, 1/2 pint. Dissolve the soap in the water with a gentle heat. Then, as the mixture cools, stir in the other ingredients. Use it by rubbing it over the gloves until the dirt is removed. To wash thread lace. Rip off the lace, carefully pick out the loose bits of thread, and roll the lace very smoothly and securely round a clean black bottle, previously covered with old white linen, sewed tightly on. Tack each end of the lace with a needle and thread to keep it smooth, and be careful in wrapping not to crumple or fold in any of the scallops or purlings. After it is on the bottle, take some of the best sweet oil and with a clean sponge wet the lace thoroughly to the inmost folds. Have ready a wash kettle, a strong cold lather of clear water and white castile soap. Fill the bottle with cold water to prevent its bursting. Cork it well and stand it upright in the suds, with a string round the neck secured to the ears or handle of the kettle to prevent its knocking about and breaking while over the fire. Let it boil in the suds for an hour or more till the lace is clean and white all through. Drain off the suds and dry it on the bottle in the sun. When dry, remove the lace from the bottle and roll it round a wide ribbon block, or lay it in long folds. Place it within a sheet of smooth white paper, and press it in a large book for a few days. To wash a white lace veil. Put the veil into a strong lather of white soap and very clear water, and let it simmer slowly for a quarter of an hour. Take it out and squeeze it well, but be sure not to rub it. Rinse it in 2 cold waters with a drop or 2 of liquid blue in the last. Have ready some very clear and weak gum arabic water or some thin starch or rice water. Pass the veil through it and clear it by clapping. Then stretch it out even and pin it to dry on a linen cloth, making the edge as straight as possible, opening out all the scallops and fastening each with pins. When dry, lay a piece of thin muslin smoothly over it and iron it on the wrong side. To wash a black lace veil. Mix bullock's gall with sufficient hot water to make it as warm as you can bear your hand in. Then pass the veil through it. It must be squeezed and not rubbed. It will be well to perfume the gall with a little musk. Next rinse the veil through 2 cold waters, tinging the last with indigo. Then dry it. Have ready in a pan some stiffening made by pouring boiling water on a very small piece of glue. Pat the veil into it, squeeze it out, stretch it, and clap it. Afterwards pin it out to dry on a linen cloth, making it very straight and even, and taking care to open and pin the edge very nicely. When dry, iron it on the wrong side, having laid a linen cloth over the ironing blanket. Any article of black lace may be washed in this manner. To clean white satin and flowered silks. 1. Mix sifted stale breadcrumbs with powder blue and rub it thoroughly all over, then shake it well and dust it with clean, soft cloths. Afterwards, where there are any gold or silver flowers, take a piece of crimson Ingram velvet, rub the flowers with it, which will restore them to their original luster. 2. Pass them through a solution of fine hard soap at a hand heat, drawing them through the hand. Rinse in lukewarm water, dry and finish by pinning out. Brush the flossy or bright side with a clean clothes brush, the way of the nap. Finish them by dipping a sponge into a size made by boiling isinglass in water and rub the wrong side. Rinse out a second time and brush, and dry near a fire or in a warm room. Silks may be treated in the same way, but not brushed. To clean white silk. Dissolve some of the best curd soap in boiling water, and when the solution is as hot as the hand can bear, pass the silk through it thoroughly, handling it gently, not to injure the texture. If there are any spots, these may be rubbed carefully until they disappear. The article must be then rinsed in lukewarm water. To iron silk. Silk cannot be ironed smoothly so as to press out all the creases without first sprinkling it with water and rolling it up tightly in a towel, letting it rest for an hour or two. If the iron is in the least too hot, it will injure the color, and it should first be tried on an old piece of the same silk. To wash silk. Half a pint of gin, 4 ounces of soft soap, and 2 ounces of honey, well shaken. Then rub the silk with a sponge, wetted with the above mixture, upon a table, and wash through 2 waters, in which first put 2 or 3 spoonfuls of ox gall, which will brighten the colors, and prevent their running. The silks should not be wrung, but well shaken and hung up smoothly to dry, and mangled while damp. The writer has had green silk dresses washed by this receipt, and they have looked as well as new. To renovate black silk. Slice some uncooked potatoes, pour boiling water on them. When cold, sponge the right side of the silk with it, and iron on the wrong side. To keep silk. Silk articles should not be kept folded in white paper, as the chloride of lime used in bleaching the paper will probably impair the color of the silk. Brown or blue paper is better. The yellowish smooth India paper is best of all. Silk intended for a dress should not be kept in the house long before it is made up, as lying in the folds will have a tendency to impair its durability by causing it to cut or split, particularly if the silk has been thickened by gum. We knew an instance of a very elegant and costly thread-lace veil being found, on its arrival from France, cut into squares, and therefore destroyed by being folded over a pasteboard card. A white satin dress should be pinned up in blue paper, with coarse brown paper outside, sewed together at the edges. To restore velvet. When velvet gets plushed from pressure, holding the reverse side over a basin of boiling water will raise the pile, and perhaps it may also succeed in the case of wet from rain. To iron velvet. Having ripped the velvet apart, damp each piece separately, and holding it tightly in both hands, stretch it before the fire, the wrong side of the velvet being towards the fire. This will remove the creases and give the surface of the material a fresh and new appearance. Velvet cannot be ironed on a table, for when spread out on a hard substance, the iron will not go smoothly over the pile. To clean ermine and miniver fur. Take a piece of soft flannel, rub the fur well with it, but remember that the rubbing must be always against the grain. Then rub the fur with common flour until clean. Shake it well and rub again with the flannel till all the flour is out of it. I have had a miniver boa for years. It has never been cleaned with anything but flour, and is not in the least injured by the rubbing. It was a good companion who told me that her aunt, a Russian lady, always cleaned her white furs with flour, and that they looked quite beautiful. It has one advantage: the lining does not require to be taken out, and it only requires a little trouble. Ermine takes longer than miniver. The latter is very easily done. To perfume linen. Rose leaves dried in the shade or at about 4 feet from a stove, 1 pound. Cloves, caraway seeds, and allspice of each 1 ounce. Pound into a mortar or grind in a mill. Dried salt, 1/4 pound. Mix all these together and put the compound into little bags. To restore scorched linen. Take 2 onions, peel and slice them, and extract the juice by squeezing or pounding. Then cut up 1/2 ounce of white soap and 2 ounces of fuller's earth. Mix with them the onion juice and 1/2 pint of vinegar. Boil this composition well, and spread it when cool over the scorched part of the linen, leaving it to dry thereon. Afterwards wash out the linen. To whiten linen that has turned yellow. Cut up 1 pound of fine white soap into a gallon of milk, and hang it over the fire in a wash kettle. When the soap has entirely melted, put in the linen and boil it 1/2 hour. Then take it out. Have ready a lather of soap and warm water. Wash the linen in it, and then rinse it through 2 cold waters, with a very little blue in the last. To wash china, crepe scarfs, etc. If the fabric be good, these articles of dress can be washed as frequently as may be required, and no diminution of their beauty will be discoverable, even when the various shades of green have been employed among other colors in the patterns. In cleaning them, make a strong lather of boiling water. Separate to cool. When cold or nearly so, wash the scarf quickly and thoroughly. Dip it immediately in cold, hard water in which a little salt has been thrown to preserve the colors. Rinse, squeeze, and hang it out to dry in the open air. Pin it at its extreme edge to the line, so that it may not in any part be folded together. The more rapidly it dries, the clearer it will be. To clean embroidery and gold lace. For this purpose, no alkaline liquors are to be used, for while they clean the gold, they corrode the silk, and change its color. Soap also alters the shade, and even the species of certain colors. But spirit of wine may be used without any danger of its injuring either color or quality, and in many cases proves as effectual for restoring the luster of the gold as the corrosive detergents. But though spirits of wine is the most innocent material employed for this purpose, it is not in all cases proper. The golden covering may be in some parts worn off, or the base metal with which it has been alloyed may be corroded by the air, so as to leave the particles of gold disunited, while the silver underneath, tarnished to a yellow hue, may continue a tolerable color to the whole. So it is apparent that the removal of the tarnish would be prejudicial and make the lace or embroidery less like gold than it was before. It is necessary that care should be taken. To remove stains of wine or fruit from table linen. A wine stain may sometimes be removed by rubbing it, while wet, with common salt. It is said also that sherry wine poured immediately on a place where port wine has been spilled will prevent it leaving a stain. A certain way of extracting fruit or wine stains from table linen is to tie up some cream of tartar in the stained part, so as to form a sort of bag, and then to put the linen into a lather of soap and cold water and boil it a while. Then transfer it wet to a lukewarm suds, wash and rinse it well, and dry and iron it. The stains will disappear during the process. Another way is to mix in equal quantities soft soap, slackened lime, and pearl ash. Rub the stain with this preparation and expose the linen to the sun with the mixture plastered on it. If necessary, repeat the application. As soon as the stain has disappeared, wash out the linen immediately, as it will be injured if the mixture is left in it. Stain mixture. Take an ounce of sal ammoniac or hartshorn and an ounce of salt of tartar. Mix them well, put them into a pint of soft water, and boil it for use, keeping it very tightly corked. Pour a little of this liquid into a saucer and wash in it those parts of a white article that have been stained with ink, mildew, fruit, or red wine. When the stains have by this process been removed, wash the article in the usual manner. Chemical renovating balls. For taking out grease, paint, pitch, tar from silks, stuffs, linen, woolen, carpets, hats, coats, etc., without fading the color or injuring the cloth, 1/4 ounce of fuller's earth, 1/4 ounce of pipe clay, 1 ounce salt of tartar, 1 ounce beef gall, 1 ounce spirits of wine. Pound the hard parts and mix the ingredients well together. Wet the stain with cold water, rub it well with this ball, then sponge it with a wet sponge, and the stain will disappear. To prevent colored things from running. Boil 1/4 pound of soap till nearly dissolved, then add a small piece of alum and boil with it. Wash the things in this lather, but do not soak them. If they require a second water, put alum to that also, as well as to the rinsing and blue water. This will preserve them. To remove stains from mourning dresses. Take a good handful of fig leaves and boil them in 2 quarts of water until reduced to a pint. Squeeze the leaves and put the liquor into a bottle for use. The articles, whether of bombasin, crepe, cloth, etc., need only be rubbed with a sponge dipped in the liquor, when the effect will be instantly produced. If any reason exists to prevent the substance from being wetted, then apply French chalk, which will absorb the grease from the finest texture without injury. To shrink new flannel. New flannel should always be shrunk or washed before it is made up, that it may be cut out more accurately, and that the grease which is used in manufacturing it may be extracted. First cut off the list along the selvage edges of the whole piece. Then put it into warm, not boiling water, without soap. Begin at one end of the piece and rub it with both hands till you come to the other end. This is to get out the grease and the blue with which new white flannel is always tinged. Then do the same through another water. Rinse it through a clean, lukewarm water, wring it lengthways, and stretch it well. In hanging it out on a line, do not suspend it in festoons, but spread it along the line straight and lengthways. If dried in festoons, the edges will be in great scallops, making it very difficult to cut out. It must be dried in the sun. When dry, let it be stretched even, clapped with the hands, and rolled up tight and smoothly till wanted. Gum Arabic starch. Get 2 ounces of fine white gum Arabic and pound it to powder. Next put it into a pitcher and pour on it a pint or more of boiling water, according to the degree of strength you desire, and then, having covered it, let it set all night. In the morning, pour it carefully from the dregs into a clean bottle, cork it, and keep it for use. A tablespoonful of gum water stirred into a pint of starch that has been made in the usual manner will give to lawns, either white or printed, a look of newness to which nothing else can restore them after washing. It is also good, much diluted, for thin white muslin and bobbinet. To wash white thread gloves and stockings. These articles are so delicate as to require great care in washing, and they must not on any account be rubbed. Make a lather of white soap and cold water, and put it into a saucepan. Soap the gloves or stockings well, put them in, and set the saucepan over the fire. When they have come to a hard boil, take them off, and when cool enough for your hand, squeeze them in the water. Having prepared a fresh cold lather, boil them again in that. Then take the pan off the fire and squeeze them well again, after which they can be stretched, dried, and then ironed on the wrong side. To clean silk stockings. First wash the stockings in the usual manner to take out the rough dirt. After rinsing them in clean water, wash them well in a fresh soap liquor. Then make a third soap liquor, which color with a little stone blue. Then wash the stockings once more. Take them out, wring them, and particularly dry them. Now stove them with brimstone, and draw on a wooden leg 2 stockings, one upon the other, observing that the 2 fronts or outsides are face to face. Polish with a glass bottle. The 2 first liquors should be only lukewarm, but the third as hot as you can bear your hand in. Blondes and gauzes may be whitened in the same manner, but there should be a little gum put in the last liquor before they are stoved. To take out mildew from clothes. Mix some soft soap with powdered starch, half as much salt, and the juice of a lemon. Lay it on the part with a brush. Let it be exposed in the air day and night until the stain disappears. Iron molds may be removed by the salt of lemons. Many stains in linen may be taken out by dipping linen in sour buttermilk and then drying it in the sun. Afterwards, wash it in cold water several times. Stains caused by acids may be removed by tying some pearl ash up in the stained part. Scrape some soap in cold soft water and boil the linen till the stain is out. Bleaching straw. Straw is bleached and straw bonnets cleaned by putting them into a cask into which a few brimstone matches are placed lighted. The fumes of the sulfur have the effect of destroying the color or whitening the straw. The same effect may be produced by dipping the straw into the chloride of lime dissolved in water. To wash mousseline de laine. Boil a pound of rice in 5 quarts of water, and when cool enough, wash in this, using the rice for soap. Have another quantity ready, but strain the rice from this and use it with warm water, keeping the rice strained off for a third washing, which at the same time stiffens and also brightens the colors. To bleach a faded dress. Wash the dress in hot suds and boil it until the color appears to be gone. Then rinse it and dry it in the sun. Should it not be rendered white by these means, lay the dress in the open air and bleach it for several days. If still not quite white, repeat the boiling. Indelible marking ink without preparation. 1½ drams nitrate of silver, lunar caustic, 1 ounce distilled water, 1/2 ounce strong mucilage of gum arabic, 3/4 dram liquid ammonia. Mix the above in a clean glass bottle, cork tightly, and keep in a dark place till dissolved, and ever afterwards. Directions for use. Shake the bottle, then dip a clean quill pen in the ink and write or draw what you require on the article. Immediately hold it close to the fire without scorching, or pass a hot iron over it, and it will become a deep and indelible black, indestructible by either time or acids of any description. Mixture for removing ink stains and iron molds. Cream of tartar and salts of sorrel, 1 ounce each, mix well, and keep in a stoppered bottle. To wash hairbrushes. Never use soap. Take a piece of soda, dissolve it in warm water, stand the brush in it, taking care that the water only covers the bristles. It will almost immediately become white and clean. Stand it to dry in the open air with the bristles downwards, and it will be found as firm as a new brush. To clean head and clothes brushes. Put a tablespoonful of pearl ash into a pint of boiling water. Having fastened a bit of sponge to the end of a stick, dip it into the solution and wash the brush in it, carefully going in among the bristles. Next, pour over it some clean hot water and let it lie a little while. Then drain it, wipe it with a cloth, and dry it before the fire. Lola Montez, in her Arts of Beauty, gives the following receipts for complexion, hair, etc. For the complexion, infuse wheat bran, well sifted, for 4 hours in white wine vinegar. Add to it 5 yolks of eggs and 2 grains of ambergris, and distill the whole. It should be carefully corked for 12 or 15 days, when it will be fit for use. Distill 2 handfuls of jessamine flowers in a quart of rose water and a quart of orange water. Strain through porous paper and add a scruple of musk and a scruple of ambergris to give elasticity of form. Fat of the stag or deer, 8 ounces. Florence oil or olive oil, 6 ounces. Virgin wax, 3 ounces. Musk, 1 grain. White brandy, 1/2 pint. Rose water, 4 ounces. Put the fat, oil, and wax into a well-glazed earthen vessel, and let them simmer over a slow fire until they are assimilated. Then pour in the other ingredients, and let the whole gradually cool, when it will be fit for use. There is no doubt but that this mixture, frequently and thoroughly rubbed upon the body on going to bed, will impart a remarkable degree of elasticity to the muscles. In the morning, after this preparation has been used, the body should be thoroughly wiped with a sponge dampened with cold water. For the complexion, take equal parts of the seeds of the melon, pumpkin, gourd, and cucumber, pounded till they are reduced to powder, and add to it sufficient fresh cream to dilute the flour, and then add milk enough to reduce the whole to a thin paste. Add a grain of musk and a few drops of the oil of lemon. Anoint the face with this, leave it on 20 or 30 minutes, or overnight if convenient, and wash off with warm water. It gives a remarkable purity and brightness to the complexion. Infuse a handful of well-sifted wheat bran for 4 hours in white wine vinegar. Add to it 5 yolks of eggs and 2 grains of musk, and distill the whole. Bottle it, keep it carefully corked 15 days, when it will be fit for use. Apply it overnight and wash in the morning with tepid water. Tooth powder. Prepared chalk 6 ounces, cassia powder 1/2 ounce, orris root 1 ounce. These should be thoroughly mixed and used once a day with a firm brush. A simple mixture of charcoal and cream of tartar is an excellent tooth powder. To whiten the hand. Both Spanish and French women, those at least who are very particular to make the most of these charms, are in the habit of sleeping in gloves which are lined or plastered over with a kind of pomade to improve the delicacy and complexion of their hands. This paste is generally made of the following ingredients. Take 1/2 pound of soft soap, a gill of salad oil, an ounce of mutton tallow, and boil them till they are thoroughly mixed. After the boiling has ceased, but before it is cold, add 1 gill of spirits of wine and a grain of musk. If any lady wishes to try this, she can buy a pair of gloves 3 or 4 sizes larger than the hand, rip them open, and spread on a thin layer of the paste, and then sew the gloves up again. There is no doubt that by wearing them every night, they will give smoothness and a fine complexion to the hands. Those who have the means can send to Paris and purchase them ready-made. If the hands are inclined to be rough and to chap, the following wash will remedy the evil. Lemon juice 3 ounces, white vinegar 3 ounces, white brandy 1/2 pint. For the hair, beat up the white of 4 eggs into a froth and rub that thoroughly in close to the roots of the hair. Leave it to dry on. Then wash the hair clean with a mixture of equal parts of rum and rose water. Honey water. Essence of ambergris 1 dram. Essence of musk 1 dram. Essence of bergamot 2 drams. Oil of cloves 15 drops. Orange flower water 4 ounces. Spirits of wine 5 ounces. Distilled water 4 ounces. All these ingredients should be mixed together and left about 14 days, then the whole to be filtered through porous paper and bottled for use. This is a good hair wash and an excellent perfume. To remove pimples. There are many kinds of pimples, some of which partake almost of the nature of ulcers, which require medical treatment. But the small red pimple, which is most common, may be removed by applying the following twice a day. Sulphur water 1 ounce, acetate liquor of ammonia 1/4 ounce, liquor of potassa 1 grain, white wine vinegar 2 ounces, distilled water 2 ounces. To remove black specks or flesh worms. Sometimes little black specks appear upon the base of the nose, or on the forehead, or in the hollow of the chin, which are called flesh worms, and are occasioned by coagulated lymph that obstructs the pores of the skin. They may be squeezed out by pressing the skin, and ignorant persons suppose them to be little worms. They are permanently removed by washing with warm water and severe friction with a towel, and then applying a little of the following preparation: liquor of potassa 1 ounce, cologne 2 ounces, white brandy 4 ounces. The warm water and friction alone are sometimes sufficient. To remove freckles. The most celebrated compound ever used for the removal of freckles was called Onction de Maintenon, after the celebrated Madame de Maintenon, mistress and wife of Louis XIV. It is made as follows: Venice soap 1 ounce, lemon juice 1/2 ounce, oil of bitter almonds, 1/4 ounce, deliquidated oil of tartar, 1/4 ounce, oil of rhodium, 3 drops. First dissolve the soap in the lemon juice, then add the 2 oils, and place the whole in the sun till it acquires the consistence of ointment, and then add the oil of rhodium. Anoint the freckly face at night with this unction, and wash in the morning with pure water, or if convenient with a mixture of elderflower and rose water. To remove tan. An excellent wash to remove tan is called crème de l'enclos, and is made thus: new milk, 1/2 pint, lemon juice, 1/4 ounce, white brandy, 1/2 ounce. Boil the whole and skim it clear from all scum. Use it night and morning. A famous preparation with the Spanish ladies for removing the effects of the sun and making the complexion bright is composed simply of equal parts of lemon juice and the white of an egg. The whole is beat together in a varnished earthen pot and set over a slow fire, and stirred with a wooden spoon till it acquires the consistence of soft pomatum. This compound is called pommade de Seville. If the face is well washed with rice water before it is applied, it will remove freckles and give a fine luster to the complexion. End of Chapter 27, Part 2. End of the Ladies' Book of Etiquette and Manual of Politeness by Florence Hartley.